Thank you for joining me, Glenora Shipora, on NMH at 1, where we highlight the news making waves in Namibia and beyond, ranging from current affairs, community stories, sports, and economic news. Coming up in this broadcast, stimulus sells interest in NMH and Newsprint. Father jailed for 20 years after raping daughters. Shortage of mental health facilities haunts government. You can expect these stories on NMH at 1 right after this. Getting into our midday news update, Stimulus Investments Limited this morning announced that its wholly owned subsidiary Desert Trade Investment Pty Limited has agreed to sell off all of its ordinary shares held in Namibia Media Holdings and Newsprint to its co-shareholder Emeralds and Properties Pty Limited. The shareholders of Emeralds and Properties will include various members of the NMH and Newsprint management teams. Stimulus, through DTI, holds a 79.95% shareholding in NMH and its subsidiaries and an 80% interest in Newsprint Namibia. Visual News highlights local stories from across Namibia. Right after the break, we get into this. To stay with NMH at 1.
As well as keeping you informed on the issues that you need to know happening in and around our country.
Getting into our visual news, Yeruke Kuro Stephen Torokade, Chief Strategic Communication at Namibia Revenue Agency, speaking at the stakeholders engagement session held at the Ongwediva Annual Trade Fair yesterday. The event aimed to provide an opportunity for engagement between NAMRA and stakeholders on customs and tax-related issues. It also addressed the importation of goods at the Oshikango border post bordering between Namibia and Angola. Let's take a look.
Yes, we've just concluded a stakeholders engagement, which is part of our nationwide engagement, given the diverse nature of our stakeholder universe. And this particular one was important for us because we thought that there is a lot of business people and various business activities happening here, and therefore it would be good to engage them on the margins of the expo. Of course, we've got our stand where they can be assisted with whatever issues they come with, whether it's domestic taxes or customs and excise. But there's also a need for a conversation to happen, and that's what we had here. Here, much of really was dedicated towards the import and exports. There seem to be a lot of activities between our border with Angola, and there's issues that came out. Some of them we took note, others we were able to adequately and effectively respond to. So we think overall it was a very effective engagement. Looking forward to further such similar engagements. There's an issue around the importation of second-hand clothing. A point was made to say when it's imported through the Oshikango border, the cost imposed on that is different from when it comes through either Ariansvlei or the Katima Mlilo border post. And there obviously the dynamics are not the same. SACU regulations and SACU membership kicks in and the like. So there is a need for a particular and a specific explanation that needs to be tendered there. There's also an issue around the firewood, the importation of firewood, and that's also something that is not only with the Namibia Revenue Agency, but there are other stakeholders, for instance, the Ministry responsible for forestry. Those engagements also needs to continue. So some of those that we are taking, but the others we've really provided explanation for. For instance, the tax relief that people are saying must be extended, and we're saying we are now in August 2023. That program is running up to the end of October 2024. It's definitely not the right to talk about an extension right now.
Into our next story, the National Disability Council of Namibia is currently hosting a two-day legislative review workshop at the MTC Dome in Swakopmund. The event hopes to draft a Persons with Disabilities Bill as well as amend the National Policy on Disability, which aims to domesticate the principles entrenched in the United Nations Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities into its domestic statutory frameworks. NDCN's Chief Executive Officer Angelique Philander tells us more.
I think it's a consultation that has been awaited for a very long time. And I think the drafting of the Persons with Disability Bill and the amendment of the National Policy on Disability is something that all of us in the disability fraternity are welcoming. As you know, Namibia has ratified the United Nations Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disability in 2007. However, we have an outdated policy which was crafted in 1997, National Policy on Disability, as well as the National Disability Councils Act, Act number 26 of 2004. Therefore, the government of Namibia found it necessary for these two frameworks to be amended and aligned and harmonized with national, international, and regional frameworks, legal frameworks, in order to cater for the issues pertaining to persons of disabilities, especially the protection of the rights of persons with disability, which is not so comprehensive in any legislative framework in Namibia. And therefore, this Persons with Disability Bill has been crafted to ensure that we comprehensively protect the rights of persons with disability in Namibia and align it to the UNCPRD. So therefore, we are also at the same time attempting to domesticate the UNCPRD, especially Articles number 4, which puts out the obligation of Namibia as a state party to protect the rights and the needs of persons with disability in Namibia. Coupled with this, we are currently also the National Disability Council, together with the GIZ, the National Federations for Persons with Disability. We are also busy collecting data, disaggregated data, in order to best inform the bill and the policy. We currently were successful last year in November and October to collect data as a pilot study in the Khomas region and the Ponene region.
After the break, the Namibian Sun leads us into the newspaper review segment. To stay tuned.
Neopaints has established a 67-year Namibian legacy, creating personalized paint solutions that blend quality and innovation for the Namibian people. We pride ourselves in being a 100% Namibian-owned company, investing in our country and our people by employing and empowering true Namibians. With every brushstroke, Neopaints commits to our quality guarantee and always delivering a coat of excellence. At Neopaints, we always stay true to our country. We are as Namibian as you.
Getting into our newspaper review, starting off with the Namibian Sun's front page that reports that the Health Minister, Dr. Kalumbi Shangula, has revealed that there is an acute shortage of mental health facilities in the country, placing thousands of people who need care for common mental disorders in limbo. Shangula said at the country's biggest mental health facility, Windhoek Central Hospital, there are only 220 beds for psychiatric patients, while Ward 16 at Oshakati Intermediary Hospital only has a capacity of 60. The facilities have to cater to all mental health related needs such as general psychiatry for inpatients and outpatients, outreach services, and forensic psychiatry services. The minister revealed this when he unveiled the inaugural mental health board for Oshakati Intermediate Hospital. Now on to page 3, the Economic Policy Research Association issued a warning against the state's ability to monitor digital communications and the possibility that Namibia could easily become a surveillance state. In a recent analysis of relevant laws and bills, EPRA emphasized these concerns, stating that they would be in violation of the Constitution, which safeguards the privacy of correspondence and communications. More specifically, analysts are raising concerns about parts of the Communications Act, which has been in effect since January. On the front page of the Republican, the mayor of Ocho says the import of borehole parts has led to this, and the town is still struggling with water problems. The residents of Ocho are outraged at this, and this has been a problem since last year. A local businessman, Dion Fester, believes it is because of the mismanagement of the town's water resources. The problem comes from 2018 down, he said. He says the pumps that supply water to Ocho at almost all the boreholes are broken. On page 3, despite the current pork shortage in Namibia due to the import ban from South Africa, the number of former pork producers remains low, causing retailers and processors to source from overseas markets. Namibia imported 337,853 kilograms of pork from 5 countries in July, with pork tailbones being the top product imported at 75,000 kilograms. Meanwhile, it exported 4,990 kilograms of pork products to 2 countries, all of which were frozen processed pork. This is according to the Meat Board's monthly Market Watch report, which says local pork slaughter recorded an 8.75% increase in the number of pigs slaughtered at local abattoirs from the June level of 3,646 to 3,767 in July. This is also 16.73% higher than in July 2022, when 3,227 pigs were slaughtered. Now, on its front page, the Allgemeine Zeitung reports that for the 3-day state visit of the Cuban president, the Heroes Memorial Ceremony was postponed to the afternoon, and the bilateral talks took place on Sunday morning. President Geingob will travel to Cuba in September for the G77 Plus China Summit. On page 3, a group of protesters led by National Ownership Association Chairman August Maleski have tabled a petition in Parliament. The home seller accused of fraud is demanding the return of the property. During the protest, Maleski and 20 citizens marched to several commercial banks along Independence Avenue demanding the return of their property. We continue with more newspaper review after the break.
Welcome to My.NA Cars, your ultimate destination for everything automotive.
I am your host, Diana Master.
Teamwork makes the dream work, right?
Discover the latest models, innovative technologies, and expert insights from our passionate hosts. Learn essential maintenance tips and get exclusive behind-the-scenes access to the automotive industry. Don't miss My.NA Cars on NTV every Thursday at 2100 hours. Tune in and ignite your passion for automobiles.
We continue with our newspaper review. The Namibian reports that a 48-year-old man convicted of raping 2 of his daughters was sentenced in the Mariental Regional Court to an effective 20 years imprisonment on Friday. The man was convicted 2 weeks ago after a lengthy trial that started in August 2020. He was arrested in October 2014 on 3 counts of rape, but was acquitted on 1 count. The father's name is being withheld to protect the identities of his daughters. He was sentenced to 15 years imprisonment on each of the 2 charges of rape on which he was found guilty, but 10 years of one sentence which will run concurrently with the other, which means he faces 20 years in jail. On page 3, Omuthia Town Council Mayor Johannes Ndeu Tepo is blaming the government's poor budget allocation for the lack of development in the town. Ndeu Tepo says since Omuthia was proclaimed a town in 2007, no government budget has been allocated for the development of the town. The mayor said this while giving an update on the infrastructural development in the town to the Parliamentary Standing Committee on Transport, Infrastructure and Housing at Omuthia on Friday. The committee is visiting the Oshikotok, Omusati, Ohangwena and Kavango West regions to assess the status of roads until Friday. The New Era's lead story reports that the University of Namibia is investigating affirmative repositioning movement head Job Amupanda, a lecturer at the university, over alleged misconduct. The charges Amupanda faces relate to his political activities at the national level and as a Windhoek municipal councillor. At the heart of the investigation is whether or not Amopanda, as a UNAM employee, can dare to dream of occupying the highest office in the land, the presidency. In May, Amopanda said he does not only dream of becoming Namibia's fourth democratically elected president, he has already started preparing his acceptance speech. Now, on page 3, Windhoek-based lawyer Conradi and friend Sarah Damasis scored a minor victory in their long-running fraud and corruption trial in the Windhoek High Court on Thursday before Judge Thomas Masuku on Friday last week. Judge Masuku dismissed an application by state advocate at Morandetsi to have the voice recordings made by Mark Bongas and Kim Fields, the DV8 Sachi, and 3 Compa owners of the advertising company during a meeting they had with Conradi and Damasis admitted as evidence. The recordings has been admitted only provisionally. Now, the Market Watch reports that South Africa's central bank governor has warned that there are still risks to inflation, even as he acknowledged that the rate has come down significantly. We are focused on the outlook for the South African economy for both growth and inflation. The job is not yet done, Leseja Kanyago told Bloomberg Surveillance in Jackson Hole, Waymonk last week. His comments came just days after data from the Statistics Office showed South Africa's inflation had eased in a 2-year low of 4.7% in July from 5.4% the month before. The Reserve Bank's Monetary Policy Committee held interest rates at 8.25% last month after raising borrowing costs by a combined 475 basis points at its 10 prior meetings. Now, after the break, we get into your economic news. Do stay tuned.
Good evening and welcome to Sunset News.
Dutch Minister's list in a speech, rate and taxes, and how much.
After the break, we take a look at the sports.
We bring you
economic indicators, tomorrow's weather and sports. I am Aina Raiza Kweyong.
Getting into our economic news, a careful balancing act allowing BRICS founding countries to motivate the inclusion of new members led to the first phase of the expansion of the group, which concluded with invitations to 6 new countries to join the bloc. However, many people have questioned the criteria that were used to select the 6 after more than 50 countries applied to be members before the summit. Some political analysts have warned that the inclusion of the new members could be a recipe for disaster as some of the countries conflict with each other. The inclusion of Argentina, Egypt, Ethiopia, Iran, the United Arab Emirates, and Saudi Arabia was the start of more countries to be co-opted into BRICS, which initially had Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa as members. Let's take a look at our economic indicators. The Namibian dollar trades against the British pound at 23.37, against the euro at 20.08, against the US dollar at 18.54, $2 Namibian dollars and 54 cents gets you 1 Chinese yuan. On the NSX, Letshego Holdings and MTC went up. Letshego Holdings going at 2.10% and MTC at 0.10%. Overall index closed at 1.67%, while local index closed at 0.08%. All commodities went up on the commodities market, with Brent crude oil trading at 0.78%, going for $85.01 per barrel. We return with more news from Africa after the break.
Hello and welcome to today's Sports Rep Show.
I am your host, Jesse Jackson Kauraifa. In replay, Namibia, who had won the toss for the first time on this tour.
Good day everyone, time for international sports news, starting off with tennis news, both on the WTA for women's and
Welcome to Active Kids, a daily TV show that sparks creativity, learning, and fun for young minds. With exciting activities and lessons, Active Kids inspires curiosity and a love for learning.
New face to the
15.
The perfect mix of play and education. Don't miss out on the fun. Tune in to Active Kids on NTV every weekday at 10 o'clock and let the adventure begin. Welcome to What's Cooking, where culinary passion meets expert insights.
Somebody must really want to cook and want to cook good food.
Immerse yourself in the bustling world of professional kitchens as top chefs create mouthwatering dishes. Join us for in-depth interviews as our host explores the experiences and expertise of our guest chefs. Don't miss out. Tune in to What's Cooking on NTV every Friday at 2100 hours and let the culinary adventure begin.
Getting into our news from across Africa, Libyan Prime Minister visited the Palestinian embassy in the capital Tripoli yesterday to affirm his country's continued support of the Palestinian cause. The visit came after Biba suspended Foreign Minister Najala Mangoush and referred her for an investigation over a meeting last week with her Israeli counterpart in Italy. Mangoush on Monday fled the country a day after Israel revealed the visit news that prompted scattered street protests in the chaos-stricken North African nation. During his meeting with Palestinian Ambassador Mohammed Rahal, Biba affirmed his country's support of Palestinians and that his previous foreign minister did not represent the government's position. The Palestinian ambassador welcomed Biba's announcement to dismiss Mangoush. Now, he did not clarify on what grounds Mangoush would be investigated. His decision to suspend Mangoush suggested that he was not aware of the meeting. However, two senior Libyan government officials told the Associated Press the Prime Minister knew about the talks between his foreign minister and the Israeli chief diplomat. One of the officials said Biba gave the green light for the meeting last month when he was on visit to Rome. We'll get you into your international news right after this. Getting into our international news story, a country in eastern China is offering couples a reward of $137 if the bride is age 25 or younger. The latest measure to incentivize young people to get married amid raising concerns over a declining birth rate. The notice, which was published on Shangshan County's official WeChat account last week, said the reward was to promote age-appropriate marriage and childbearing for its marriages. It also included a series of childcare, fertility, and education subsidies for couples who have children. Now concerned about China's first population drop in 6 decades and its rapidly aging population, authorities are urgently trying an array of measures to lift the birth rate, including financial incentives and improved childcare facilities. China's legal age limit for marriage is 22 for males and 20 for females, but the number of couples getting married has been falling. That has driven down the birth rates due to official policies that make it harder for single women to have children. Now, after the break, we get into your local sports and international sports news. Now getting into your local sports news, the FIFA Normalization Committee hopes to have the NFA elect a new executive towards the end of this year, while the starting date of the league in September is shrouded in uncertainty. Moving on, Brave Gladiators head coach Paulus Shipanga has assembled a preliminary squad for the Women Africa Cup of Nations qualification clashes against Gambia and the 2023 Hollywood Bets Women's COSAFA Cup. Now, Kyle Johnson, a highly promising junior player from Walvis Bay Golf Club, last week won South Africa's St. Lamere Junior Africa Challenge Golf Tournament and the boys under 15 to 18 age group by finishing with 72 shots and winning by 11 shots. Now we get into your international sports news. Now, the Melbourne Victory fan who threw a bucket of sand the Melbourne Victory fan who threw a bucket of sand in the face of Melbourne City goalkeeper Tom Glover during a violent pitch invasion at an A-League match last year was jailed for 3 months on Tuesday, local media reported. Now moving on, Cape Town City coach sees a major improvement in Orlando Pirates this season and expects a tough tussle in the DStv Premiership on Tuesday, but insists his beleaguered team are going to Soweto looking for a win. It was just more than a year ago that the Springbok management defended their decision to make changes to a side that beat Wales in the first test, a decision which many thought had backfired when they handed Wales their first ever win in South Africa and Bloemfontein. We'll be right back after the break to get into your news highlights. You're still watching NMH at 1. Let's get into the news highlights from today's broadcast. Libyan Prime Minister visited the Palestinian embassy in the capital Tripoli yesterday to affirm his country's continued support of the Palestinian cause. The visit came after Dibiba suspended Foreign Minister Najala Mangoush and referred her for an investigation over a meeting last week with her Israeli counterpart in Italy. A county in eastern China is offering couples a reward of $137 if the bride is aged 25 or younger, the latest measure to incentivize young people to get married amid raising concerns over a declining birth rate. Now, Brave Gladiators head coach Paulus Shipanga has assembled a preliminary